This is episode 39, Overcoming Overwhelmedness. Welcome to Alive by Design. My name is Blake Mallon, and we're here to bring you inspiring people, principles, and practices to help you wake up, move toward your meant to, and feel fully alive. Open your mind and let's dive in. Hey guys, before you listen to the podcast, I just want to drop in and say I appreciate you for being here, and I'm super excited about this new Walk With Me series. These are solo episodes where I take some time in the middle of my morning run through the Santa Monica Mountains to share some inspired ideas and thoughts on my mind and heart. If you want to join me for any of these conversations live, you can catch me many mornings on my Facebook page, facebook.com/blakemallon.page. Would love to see you there. Love you guys. Enjoy the episode. Walk with me for a few minutes. So, question for you this morning. Have you ever felt like emotionally paralyzed? You know what I mean. Paralyzed, not physically, like physically if you want to move and walk around and jump up and down, you're physically capable. But when I say emotionally paralyzed, like you're stuck in your head. Your emotions have kind of hijacked your thinking, maybe even your logic. And you just feel frozen. You just feel stuck. It's horrible. I think we've all been there. And the reason it's horrible is because, you can't run away from your own emotions. You can't leave the room. You can't go to another place. You can't leave the facility. The thing about being, physically stuck is sometimes you can do something to change that instantly, but when you're emotionally stuck, it goes wherever you go. And I want to bring up the topic today because I feel like just the situation we're in right now, it's just a set of circumstances that is going to make so many of us go through at least periods where we're emotionally hijacked, emotionally stuck, emotionally frozen, emotionally paralyzed. And there can be different degrees of that, right? There can be just the feeling of overwhelmedness. How many of you have ever been in a situation, especially recently, where it just feels like a lot, like just a lot, and you just get a overwhelmed feeling? Or maybe it goes beyond just a feeling of being overwhelmed. Maybe it moves into a feeling of, kind of anxiety. You're anxious, uneasy, stirring. Anxiety taken to a longer extent or a further extent, obviously, can move into a panic, like a physical panic, an emotional panic, a never-ending panic. Any of these long enough could even slip into a depression. Let's be honest, how many of us have ever been somewhere on that scale? How many of us have been somewhere on that scale at some point in the last few months? I think all of us have, myself included. At times, even with, years of personal growth and development and focusing on mindset, I don't think anybody's going to escape the potential for slipping into these feelings right now, just because we're in such a different state. There really is a lot going on. It is a reality. It's not a made-up situation. And we're physically, stuck in environments where you just have a lot of time to be in your own head. How many of you guys have had more time in your own head during pandemic this year than you've maybe ever had before in your life? And when we're left to our own devices with a lot of idle time, a lot can happen when it comes to kind of our own conversation. And I think we have to learn how to manage this. At least here in Los Angeles, I don't know what the update is or the status is where all of you are from and walking this morning. But at least here in Los Angeles, it seems like we're kind of tightening up again. The governor just announced, we're going back to shut down on certain facilities, certain businesses can't operate. Restaurants are locking back up. They just announced here that the LA Unified School District, the obviously main school district here in Los Angeles, will not be going back to school physically in the fall. So at least for the school district, homeschooling it is. What's the current status or update where all of you are from? I would love to hear kind of an update around the world on the rules and regulations that are happening. So with all of this going on, I want to go through 3 different kind of hacks on how we can take a different vantage point when we're in the middle of that emotional freeze that I think can instantly help get us out of it. And they're really simple, but they're powerful. And I'm using them pretty frequently right now myself, finding them effective. So I want to share them with all of you guys here today. Okay, so let's get to the topic at hand. So, emotional freeze. Overwhelmed, anxiety, panic, depression because of the current state, because of not a lot of outlets, more time to get stuck in our head. A lot going on. It's heavy. It's not made up. How do we get ourselves through it? How do we overcome it? How do we interpret it? And I'm going to give you 3 different vantage points. When you're in that situation, this is a real practical application when you are sitting in the moment where you're stuck in your head and it's going around and around, and your logical, rational side knows better, but you still can't stop it. So number 1, when I talk about perspective or vantage points, morning. When I talk about perspective or vantage points, it's the point at which we choose to look through and see the situation we are in. So most of the time, we're stuck looking through our own eyes in that moment, and we choose a vantage point that may feel like what we're going through is all around us, coming from above, coming from below, coming from every side, and we're stuck in the middle. And that vantage point is what leads to kind of the overwhelmed feeling, the heightened pressure or emotion. So how can we take a different vantage point than maybe the vantage point you're currently sitting or seeing in when you're feeling those emotions? So here's one different vantage point that you can take. What if we choose to take a vantage point that is the bigger picture? When I say the bigger picture, that moves yourself out to the end, right, of your lifespan, like when it's all said and done. And from that point in time, looking backward on the point that you're in right there. So it's a bigger picture vantage point. Not here in the middle of it, not what's going on or what we feel like's going on all around us. But in that moment, we stop, we go into the future, still through our own eyes, but our future self, and look back on the point we're at. Different vantage point. Now I'm going to give you a question because our brains are question answering machines. So if we ask a question, our brain is trained to give an answer. So a lot of times we stir on issues or problems when what we really need to learn is how do we ask questions so our brain can focus on a different solution. So a question for this vantage point could be, if I focus on the bigger picture when it's all said and done, does this really matter? Write that down. If I focus on the bigger picture, when it's all said and done, does this really matter? And the this is what you're in the middle of, okay? That could be whatever issue, however small, however large it may feel, whatever is causing the trigger of overwhelmedness or anxiety or panic or depression or emotional hijacking that you can't seem to get out of. Just stop, shift the perspective. Get out of your own eyes and ask yourself, in the bigger picture, when it's all said and done, you of the future looking backwards, does this really matter? And you guys, that helps give you a different view. There's so many things that we get stuck on that feel like the end of the world. They feel like they're everything. They feel like, man, it's a storm. Man, this is as bad as it gets. It feels so heavy from the vantage point we're taking. But if we just pause, look at the bigger picture, cast yourself out to when you're 80, 90, 120, whatever your vision is, and look back and ask yourself, in the big picture, when it's all said and done, does this really matter? You're going to realize that the situation you're dealing with might be smaller in the bigger picture than the energy you're giving in that moment. But you got to shift your vantage point. If you're stuck in the middle, the eye of the storm, looking all around, it's how it's going to feel. But if you look from a different set of eyes, a different perspective, and the big picture, there's a lot of things that right now you feel are big things. And the big picture are really small things. So it gives you a different vantage point. If you get it, say, I got it. So that's a perspective you can shift to. I'll give you a different perspective. How many of you know somebody that you look up to on how they handle certain tough situations? Could be someone you know personally, like you have a personal relationship. Could be a mentor you look up to that maybe you've never met personally, but you learn from them every day through their social media or their content or their books or their podcast. But I want you guys to have somebody who you look up to their wisdom. You look up to their emotional intelligence. You look up to how they handle certain situations. And the second vantage point you can take is through the eyes of someone you look up to. So we call this, modeling. So when you're in that situation feeling, again, overwhelmed or anxious, maybe elevating panic, stop for a moment and say, and here's the question, what would, whatever that person's name is, think or do in this situation? It's easy. What would, insert name, they don't have to be alive, guys. It could be someone that was a mentor of the past. It could be anybody that you feel would handle that situation differently. And just stop in that moment and ask, what would so-and-so do in the same situation? It's a different vantage point. See, now you're stepping out of your perspective and into somebody else's set of eyes and asking yourself, what would they do in the situation? And your brain will give you an answer. And now you got a different perspective that you can choose to take to maybe minimize the paralysis, the emotional hijacking you're in. So that's a second vantage point. If you get it, say, I got it. Okay, so we got a vantage point of the big picture. We got a vantage point of someone we look up to. I'll give you one more vantage point. So I said I'd give you three. Here's another vantage point. How about a vantage point that steps into complete faith? Now, faith, guys, is going to be interpreted a bunch of different ways depending on you and your, I won't even say religious beliefs, I'll say spiritual beliefs. Because I believe spirituality is within all of us. You don't have to be religious. If you are, awesome. If you have a faith that you follow, awesome. An organization that you feel helps and impacts and adds value to you, awesome, to each your own. But I think all of us need a faith in something. We are designed as spiritual people, I believe. So you need to have some sort of belief in a bigger picture, in a bigger cause, in a higher purpose, something outside just you. So whatever your faith is, God, the universe, any belief system, I want you to step and look through the eyes of someone who has 100% faith that anything that's happening right now is for a reason, for a purpose, and everything is going to be okay. You see, the question you can ask yourself here is, if the world was happening for me right now, what else could this mean? Write that one down. If the world was happening for me right now, what else could this mean? See, you've already attached meaning to the situation, and the meaning we've attached when we're feeling those emotions is not a meaning that's serving us, it's a meaning that's paralyzing us. But it's a meaning that we attached. We attach that meaning, usually through a lens of fear or scarcity, a lens of uncertainty, unknown. Usually we take a negative perspective of the worst situation that could possibly happen, and then we amplify and multiply, carrying that out into all the different possible scenarios of doom and devastation. Sound familiar? Because this is how our minds work a lot of the time. But none of that has a perspective of faith. You guys, because faith says that we are never going to be given something we can't handle. Faith says that in the end, everything is going to be okay. And if everything's not okay, then we're not at the end yet. Faith says that we will never be given something, right, that we cannot get through. Faith says that everything is happening to us. Everything is happening for us, not to us. So a lot of times when we're stuck in a paralysis, we got to take advantage point of faith. And we got to step back and ask ourselves, if the world wasn't happening to me, but if everything right now was happening for me, what else could this mean? And you guys, that's a way to assign a different meaning to the situation you're in. So you guys, those are 3 vantage points, right? You can take if you're in a situation and you're getting emotionally paralyzed, hijacked, frozen. You're feeling the escalation of overwhelmedness to anxiety or panic or depression. You're stuck in the loop and you can't get out of it. You feel like the pressure is building, and no matter where you go physically, you can't escape it mentally because it's stuck in your own head. Consider the vantage point you're looking through and step out for a minute. Take a breath. And maybe you choose to take advantage point of the bigger picture, right? If I'm looking at the bigger picture when it's all said and done, does this really matter? Or maybe you choose to step into the eyes of someone you look up to. If so-and-so was in this situation right now, how would they respond? What would they think? Or maybe we choose to take advantage point of faith, right? If I knew with certainty that everything right now wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me, what else could this mean? Maybe one vantage point is enough to snap you out of the situation and get you moving forward. Maybe you got to ask yourself all 3 questions to look at it from a 360 or a holistic view. But guys, there's some simple hacks, really simple applications. 3 simple questions that change your vantage point, shift your perspective, and might help through the situations that, let's be honest, we're all facing right now, and we're all going to continue to face, right, in the months to come, because of the situation we're forcing to face that is new for all of us. So you guys tell me which vantage point resonates with you. Which one do you think you will try? Give me some feedback below. If there's someone that comes to your mind or your heart that you feel needs to hear this message, maybe you're seeing them or feeling them get stuck in some of those feelings, and this will help. Give them a tag. Feel free to share this if you got value from it and you want to share it with others. That is a gift that you have the ability to give. And as always, guys, I appreciate our time together. I appreciate those of you guys chiming in live as well as you catching the replay. For those of you that are new, hopefully you join us again. Check back on Mondays and Wednesday mornings around 7 a.m. Pacific time, whatever time zone that is for you, if you want to catch us live. And in the meantime, please add some value to myself and to all of us below by sharing your perspective on maybe what you do and what you find useful when you're in those emotionally paralyzing situations that are escalating at the time today for so many of us. Until then, guys, love ya. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and let's stay out of our head by learning to shift our perspective every now and then. Thanks for walking with me this morning. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey guys, one last thing. I'm super excited that this new podcast, Alive by Design, just went live. You see, I designed the show to bring you inspired thoughts and fascinating conversations with the world's most impactful people, to provide transformative principles and practices to help you wake up, move toward your meant to, and feel fully alive. And I'd love for you to help me spread the word now. Simply subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on this platform right now. So if I've ever given you value, please do me this personal favor and go subscribe now. And if you found today's episode helpful in any way, make sure you share this with at least one friend today. You have the power right now to change someone's day. So send them a text message with a link to alivebydesign.com, or simply copy and paste the link right from this podcast platform. Who's one person you know right now that you want to see succeed, that you want to see grow, that you want to see feel more alive? Shoot them a text with your largest takeaway from today and be a light in their day. And if you were referred here by a friend, make sure you shoot them a text back and say thank you. I'd love to hear from you directly on what you got from today's podcast. So if you're up for it, drop by my Instagram @BlakeMallon and shoot me a DM. And as always, thank you for showing up. I'm grateful for you, and I hope our time together today in some small way helped you feel a little more alive. Until next time.